Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really close look at Executive Order 14162.
Right, the one titled Putting America First in International Environmental Agreements.
Exactly. And this one is significant, signed January 20th, 2025.
Yeah, first day of the second Trump term. Really set a tone right away, didn't it?
It certainly did, especially regarding international climate commitments.
So the main thrust, the core directive, is pulling the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement again.
Yes, immediately withdrawing from Paris and, well, other international climate agreements too. It's quite the move.
And as you said, not the first time for the Paris Agreement specifically.
So let's unpack what this order actually does. What are the mechanics here?
Okay, so how does an EO actually, make the U.S. leave an international agreement?
Good question. The first big piece is the notification itself.
Right.
The order directs the U.S. ambassador to the UN to tell the UN Secretary General, basically right now, that the U.S. is withdrawing from Paris.
Under the UNFCCC framework.
Precisely. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That's the parent treaty, so to speak.
And it says the withdrawal is immediate, like the moment they're notified.
That's exactly what it specifies.
Yeah.
Effective immediately upon notification. It even mentions an Appendix A, which is supposedly the notification document itself.
Wow. Okay, so no, waiting period or wind down phase, just
Yeah.
out.
That seems to be the clear intention, yes.
Yeah.
An immediate break.
Okay, so after the notification, what comes next in the order?
Well, then it hits the money. The financial commitments.
Always follow the money.
Right. It orders a complete stop to all U.S. financial contributions under the UNFCCC.
And that includes things like the U.S. International Climate Finance Plan.
Yes, explicitly mentions terminating that plan. And it gets specific. The Office of Management and Budget, OMB, they have to issue guidance within 10 days.
Guidance for what?
For releasing any funds that might have been, frozen or held up. Basically, unfreeze it so it doesn't go towards those international climate goals.
Okay, that's fast. 10 days. And this climate finance plan, what was its main purpose? Who feels the impact of cutting that off?
Well, the idea behind the plan was essentially to help developing nations, help them cut their own greenhouse gas emissions, and also adapt to climate impacts already happening.
So practical help, funding projects, that sort of thing.
Exactly. So stopping that funding means countries that were maybe counting on that support, well, they might find it much harder to implement their climate plans.
I can see that. So we've got withdrawal, cutting the funding. What else?
There's a review process next,
Mm.
and it's got a really tight deadline, just 30 days.
30 days for what? That sounds quick.
It is. A whole bunch of federal departments and agencies have to report back.
Like who?
Oh, State, Treasury, Commerce, HHS, Energy, Agriculture, EPA, USAA, the Development Finance Corporation, Millennium Challenge Corporation, Exim Bank. I mean, the list goes on.
Okay, basically everyone with any international connection.
Pretty much. And they need to report on what actions they've taken to basically undo or revoke policies that were put in place because of that international climate finance plan.
So it's not just stopping future stuff. It's actively dismantling the policy structure that supported the old approach.
That seems to be the goal, yes. A broad sweep.
And then is there anything about future policy? New directions?
Yes, absolutely. The order sets out new priorities for how the U.S. should engage internationally on energy.
Okay, what are these new priorities?
They're listed explicitly. Economic efficiency, the promotion of American prosperity, consumer choice, and fiscal restraint.
Economic efficiency, prosperity, choice, fiscal restraint.
Those are the key words. The Secretary of State, Commerce Secretary, heads of agencies, they're told to focus on these things in all foreign dealings on energy policy.
That sounds like a very clear shift away from, say, collaborative environmental targets towards more domestic economic focus.
That's certainly how it reads. And just to be absolutely clear about the U.S. International Climate Finance Plan.
Yeah. What's the final word on that?
The order says it's immediately revoked and rescinded. Full stop.
Okay. Wow. So that's what the order does. But, I mean, a move like this must have caused quite a stir. What were the reactions?
Oh, definitely. Strong reactions, as you'd expect. Environmental groups, climate scientists, they were very critical.
For instance?
The Union of Concerned Scientists, they called it a travesty, said it prioritized fossil fuel profits over public health.
Strong language.
Very. And the Sierra Club also weighed in, focusing on the U.S.'s role as the largest historical emitter and what they see as a moral obligation to lead on climate action.
You can understand that perspective, particularly given the history. Pulling out of a global effort on something like climate, it raises big questions about responsibility, doesn't it?
It does. And beyond the advocacy groups, you had experts and analysts worrying about the ripple effect.
Like other countries might follow suit or weaken their own commitments.
That's the concern. If a major player like the U.S. steps back, it could, make other nations think twice about their own climate ambitions. Reduces the momentum.
It's that whole leading by example thing, or maybe leading in the other direction here. Were there comments from former officials, people involved in past climate policy?
Yes. Gina McCarthy, who was the White House National Climate Advisor under a previous administration.
Right, I remember her. What did she say?
She described the withdrawal as the administration basically abdicating its responsibility. Her words, not just for the environment, but for protecting Americans and even national security from climate threats.
So framing it as a security issue, too. That's a significant framing.
Right. And internationally.
What was the view from someone involved in, say, creating the Paris Agreement?
Lawrence Tubiana, a key architect of the agreement. She called the withdrawal unfortunate.
Unfortunate. Seems understated, maybe.
Perhaps, but she also added a note of hope, or maybe resilience. She expressed confidence that the rest of the international community would continue its climate efforts, basically saying others would push forward even without the U.S.
So disappointment, yes, but also a sense that the global effort wouldn't just collapse.
That seemed to be her message.
Okay. Now, for listeners who really want to read the fine print, where can they find the official text of this EO?
Good point. It's public record, Executive Order 14162. It was published in the Federal Register. That was January 30, 2025.
Got it. Any document numbers or page numbers?
Document number 2025-02010, and it's in volume 90, page 8455.
Okay. And probably on the White House website, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
WhiteHouse.gov and the Federal Register site both have the full text.
Great. Now, you mentioned this wasn't the only big move happening right at the start of the term. What else was going on? Context is always helpful.
Sure. Yeah, January 2025 was busy for executive actions. Alongside this climate one, there were others. There was one titled, Ending the Weaponization of the Federal Government. Another called Initial Rescissions of Harmful Executive Orders and Actions. And also one ordering the withdrawal of the U.S. from the World Health Organization.
Okay, so withdrawing from international bodies and agreements and rolling back previous policies seems like a consistent theme there early on.
It does paint a picture of the administration's immediate priorities across several fronts. This environmental order was definitely part of a larger pattern of action.
Right. So summing up our deep dive then, EO 14162 is a very direct, very immediate withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, stopping the related funding.
Correct. And it triggered, a lot of reaction. Strong opposition from environmental groups and climate experts, concerns about global cooperation.
But also a clear signal about prioritizing domestic economic factors, American prosperity in international energy dealings.
Exactly. The immediate impacts are the withdrawal notice, the funding cuts, and this internal review to reverse related policies.
Yeah.
Plus, those new guiding principles for future energy talks.
And as we heard, views really diverge on what this all means, for the U.S. role in tackling climate change, for international teamwork on these huge global issues.
Which really leads to a core question for you listening right now.
Yeah.
How do you see that balance playing out?
Yeah, the balance between focusing inward on national economic goals and engaging outward on global challenges like climate change that really need everyone working together.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How this America First approach, applied to international environmental deals, might reshape global cooperation moving forward on climate, but maybe on other critical issues too.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for digging into this with us today.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back soon to unpack another piece of the policy puzzle.